All right, welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. It's been a minute, but we're throwing it back to earlier in the season when we had a regular appearance from our good friends Jess and Nat from for our South America special, and we have a lot to talk about in this one. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you see me wincing, I have pulled a nerve in my back for reasons passing understanding. I'm just old now, and that is a preview of the rest of my life. So if you're like, man, why is he wincing like an idiot? That is why. It is quite painful. But luckily, friends, we have a lot of very, very good stuff to talk about here. We're going to talk about Andrey Santos and his incredible loan season at Strasbourg, talk about Estevao, who has just been going from strength to strength, and then the potential transfer of another Brazilian talent into Chelsea Football Club, and the profile of Rodrigo and what that might look like for Chelsea if certain things happen towards the end of the season. But we would be burying the lead if we didn't talk about Andrey Santos and everything that he has done on loan at Strasbourg. And I don't know where to start, Jess, other than with you and your overall analysis gushing about who this player has become in just a year and a half on loan.
I mean, it's, I'm sorry, like the words, because it's just so nice when you have followed a player for so long and watch them in the academy and watch them in the second division in Brazil, and just to see that he is becoming the player that you always thought that he could become. And when I say you, I don't mean just me. I think like people in Brazil that have been following him as a whole and watching what he does, especially for Brazil, like the U20s and U17s, and it's great. I think this season he had a lot more responsibility with Strasbourg, both as, you know, assuming the role of captain, which is something that we were looking forward to because we saw him doing that for Brazil. And so just to see that he is like replicating what he has done in his youth days now as a senior player, and that's something that you always want to see, but it doesn't necessarily always happen. And for him, it just comes so effortlessly, you know, just the maturity levels on him. I think he's now coach talked about how he looks like he's 30 something years old in terms of maturity. And we saw that with him like very early on. So it's amazing. It's been great to see. And I think he is growing other aspects of his game as well. I wouldn't say that he was necessarily going to be this, tackle monster and always going to the ground. It was not something that you would see him, or at least not something that I would define him with. And I think that's an area of his game where he has grown exponentially this season, in terms of stats and everything. So it's also something that I want to see what happens going forward. Is it something that he's truly adding to his game, or is it just one of those, weird seasons, and that's not something that you're going to continue to see throughout his development? But I think what we can see without a shadow of a doubt is that we have a tremendous player on our hands, and if Chelsea play their cards right, then we're going to have a solid midfielder, someone who is very competitive, someone who kind of loves to, and I think we've talked about this before on the pod, how he is someone that truly dives deep within the history of the club. He's someone that likes to connect with the fans, connect with the history of the club where he's at. And so that's something, we as fans always want to see. So, just happy all around. And honestly, I can't wait to see him playing for Chelsea. And I mean, yeah, I don't know if I can speak much more than that. I'm just excited and to see what he does for us now already, like in a couple of months.
Yeah, the quote from Rossignol was, he plays like he's 32. There were other players that had a worthy cause to be captain, but I felt that Andrey was the best and right choice. Nat, this is a player who has always exhibited leadership abilities through youth teams and even youth national teams. Captain as a lone player is a pretty outstanding trait to have. I believe Reece James once did that, and that turned
Yeah.
out okay along the way. So, what are your thoughts on the season that he just had? I mean, we can go through any number of stats that you want here, but just give your analysis on the evolution of the player.
Yeah, I'm gonna go beyond this season because I feel like the last 6 months of last season with Strasbourg were key as well, because he had a terrible loan at Forest, and it wasn't his fault. I mean, the club was kind of a mess. At the time, we all thought it was going to work out, but it didn't for many reasons. Not not all of them, not most of them maybe, were due to Andrei. So it was a bummer to see that it didn't work out in the end, and he had to move again in the middle of the season. Move to another. I know French is basically the same as Portuguese in some aspects, but still, he had just moved from Brazil to England, and then from England to France. So he's been showing this character that we've been seeing throughout his career, which is still very in its early days. And it's crazy for me that we are seeing this and we are getting it at Chelsea, because we always talk about the lack of leaders in the squad, and I don't usually agree with people that we need older leaders, let's put it this way. As Rosinha said, he plays like a veteran and he acts like a veteran. So sometimes we don't need veterans to build a winning squad and everything. We just need leaders. And we see Andrei being a leader at 21, 20, I don't know. I think he's 21 already, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. And I feel like him becoming a dad is going to play a huge factor as well. Going to grow in his personal life, and that's probably going to spill over to his professional side as well. So I'm excited to see him in the Chelsea shirt. I can't wait for him to join the squad. I don't feel like we're going to need to wait months. I mean, the season ends, and he's probably joining us because of the Club World Cup. So it will be exciting to see, as Jess said, if it was something that happened this season or if it's something that he's going to keep developing, which I think he will, because the Premier League is very intense and demands a lot defensively. So I feel like we're going to see this side of him that's not going to be like, he's not going to be that versatile anymore. He's going to keep that versatility, but he's going to be much more sharpened as a player. He's going to play much more around, he's going to be able to play in different positions that we need right now, especially because I don't know where Maresca is going with his system, but given what we have now, we have needs. And Andrei can tackle many of these leads we have at the moment.
Some of us have argued that he could have helped us this season at Chelsea Football Club. I still maintain that. It was a lovely loan season, though, just to run you through some stats for those playing along at home. 32 matches in the league, 10 goals, 3 assists, 89% pass accuracy, 67% long pass accuracy, which is absolutely insane. 110 tackles, that's 3.4, 3.5 a game. 220 defensive actions, that's 6.9 a game. 188 balls recovered, 5.9 a game. 228 duels won. We know that he was first in the league for a long time in duels won, is now second in the league. It's where he ended. 63 fouls suffered during the league, and an overall SOFA score rating of 7.44, which puts him up there in terms of SOFA scores, European ratings. Of those numbers, Jess, what stands out to you? I mean, I think you mentioned the tackles. We knew he was going to be a great passer, right? That was kind of just part and parcel with who this player has become. But what stands out to you with those stats?
I think two things stand out to me. One, if I'm talking like objectively as someone who is just getting to know the player, and obviously I think I would look at the goals, especially because he started scoring this season with the headers and everything before actually Enzo Fernandez found his way towards goal, and we needed that midfielder who could score, and he was getting great numbers throughout Europe when you compared people of his age bracket. So I think that would be the eye-catching thing if I didn't really know him. But because I have followed him throughout a long time, and obviously we knew he was great in the air, we knew he could arrive well in the box, I maintain, I think I like him with a little bit more freedom and not as a lone DM sort, so he more like a B2B. And obviously we had the comparisons with, in terms of characteristics anyway, with SEN. So for me particularly, the most impressive I have to point out the tackles and just how just not just how much he is tackling, but how comfortable he is. Obviously, he would have a lot more time to think about and to actually like program his tackle in a way and to read the game. And I think come to the Premier League, it's going to be a little bit more fast paced. But it's just an aspect of his game that it is eye catching to me because it's not something that I would define him with. It was not something that he presented throughout his career at that level, with those numbers. So, there are two main stats that I think you can look at either of them and just be happy. I think it just shows that he is turning out to be a very well-rounded player. I agree with that. I think you have to find a particular place for him in the squad. Obviously, I have my opinion, Nat will have her opinion, and so on and so forth. But whether or not that is in my preference, which would be my preference alongside Enzo and Caicedo, or rotating with either one of those, you would have to have it a little bit more defined because he's at the stage where he needs to really sharpen his attributes. But even when you consider that, I think you still have a very versatile player that can, occupy multiple positions and help out the squad when you're talking about a big season with, hopefully Champions League to fight for. Hopefully, let's see what happens. But yeah, I think it just showcases, if you look at his stats throughout the season, not only with a particular, either is who scored or whatever stat that you wanted. It's impressive, isn't it? Because of how consistent he has been, it just shows that he is turning out to be a very, very well-rounded player.
Yeah, I mean, I would throw in there, Nat, the 228 duels one. I think that's
an incredibly... the one I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's, for me, I think in the Premier League, it is going to be played at a different speed. It is going to be a kind of whole different ball game. I know Rosinha and Maresca play semi-similar styles, so it's not going to be totally a new system for him. But you got to be combative in the Premier League. You got to challenge for tackles. You got to win duels. You got to make sure that you're in the mix and contributing defensively to the team. That's the one that stood out to you. Why is that?
Yeah, just because we've seen a lot of people, this is not something I necessarily agree, but I've seen many people saying and speaking about how Enzo Fernandez obviously contribute that much off the ball and defensively. And I was actually watching an interview he gave to some, journalist. I think he's from Argentina. Anyways, he was talking about how it was hard for him to adapt to the Premier League at the start, and especially last season with Pochettino. He said it was like, okay, I'm kind of falling behind from what these guys are doing. I need to work on myself mentally and physically so that I can catch up with them. And I feel like we are seeing him catch up with the rest of the team. As Jess said, he wasn't scoring and assisting that much, but now he is. That's some way of him catching up. And I do feel like he does contribute a lot off the ball. But anyways, I do agree that we need more presence in midfield without the ball. So I feel like winning duels and engaging in defensive actions is key for us. Because if we dominate midfield with a better attack, we should be fighting in all fronts. I know we've been saying that for a couple of years now, but I truly believe that if we dominate midfield, most of our problems will be solved. And I feel like Andrey is the key to that. I agree with Jess. I'd like to see Andrey play alongside Enzo and Moises Caicedo, not replacing one of them, but I do know that there is hierarchy and all, so we'll see how it goes. But I do feel like those three complement each other very well, and we could be in for some sort of domination in the league if we make it work out. I feel like I'm going ahead of myself a bit, but it's really how I feel. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see too. If if everyone is true to their word and he is back in the team next year and helping us fight for trophies, that there's a lot of different configurations. We've seen Enzo Maresca play around with Caicedo in different formations. We've seen what Romeo Lavia has been able to contribute when he's been available, which has not been that often. We've seen Enzo Fernandez much further up the pitch this year. It'll be very interesting to me to kind of see, like, how is he somewhat of the linchpin between Caicedo and Enzo? Is he allowed to have a little bit of freedom and go up and score some goals? I mean, the goal scoring this year wasn't even a part of my consideration set for this loan, but you see the set piece ability and his aerial ability, which is outstanding for a player who isn't the biggest guy in the world. I mean, he's a really, really good leaper, though, and I think has great timing. And the fact that he just started shooting from outside the box, which is, I mean, how many times have we been begging for our players to just shoot this season? Just shoot the ball and see what happens. I think that's a wonderful thing to mix in, especially in a team that could have a lot of possession next year. So very, very excited about that. I mean, as a note of his, I said he did finish second in the league in duels. He did finish first in ground duels, but total duels he was second. So likes himself to be planted on the ground to win those and turn over possession and move forward. Jess, I did bring up a couple of player profiles here just to see how we were doing. Andrey Santos against a player that's in the team of the season, remarkably, for reasons that I cannot explain, in Alexis McAllister at Liverpool, and against our very own Moises Caicedo. And the boy acquits himself quite well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's just impressive. You look at his chart, it's just well-rounded, right? You're talking about some of the very best players. I mean, no one will complain about Caicedo being our player of the season. I mean, he has been outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And obviously, you're talking about different leagues, and the optics will certainly vary. But if you're talking about a 21-year-old with everything that we've talked about, and to see him at that level, it just shows a lot of promise. And now you can just be a little bit like, wow, we have both. So, I'm not even going to talk about McAllister that much because, as you said, I mean, I think he's great, right? But he hasn't been a standout player for me personally this season. And I don't think he has been Liverpool's best midfielder either. So, but it's just when you see him alongside those players, you're talking about the very best in the league for us. So it's just great. And now hopefully we'll be able to say we'll have both of them in our squad and soon, God willing, in our starting 11. So, that's just like, maybe, it's too much. Like, it feels like unfair in a sense for others, but I'm just happy.
I frankly don't feel that way at all. I think the more the better. I brought up McAllister because I think it was absolute nonsense that he made it in the first team of the season over Moises Caicedo. It's absolutely insane. But just to give you a sense, it's unbelievable. I wanted to throw it in there. Obviously, we know Ligue 1 is not the Premier League. Obviously, we know Liverpool are champions, and McAllister did play a significant role in that championship quest. I'm not comparing them directly, but I am just saying on a stats perspective, there's a hell of a lot more blue for Andrey Santos on this spider chart than there is red for Alexis McAllister. He has a better passing percentage. He has better interceptions. He has better percentage of dribblers tackled, better headers won by a significant margin, slightly less fouls, a better progressive carry distance, the same on scoring contributions essentially, and adjusted tackles. He's slightly better on interceptions. I know it's not apples to apples, Nat, but this is a player who, if you just do a simple bit of analysis, would tell you that there's a heck of a lot that he can do. He's not overloaded on one part of the chart or another part of the chart. He's as well-rounded as one of these charts can be.
Yeah, and he was always like that. I mean, we're talking about how leagues are different, but I feel like he's played in his career, second division in Brazil. We might talk about the technical side. It's not the best, but it's very physical and intense. The calendar here in Brazil is very intense. We have teams playing every 3-4 days, which is what we are going to see him doing next season. Hopefully, they are not going to ruin our mood ever. He's staying. But this is hopefully what he'll be doing, and he's used to that. And now in League 1, he had major responsibilities on and off the ball, on and off the pitch, both in his personal and professional life. So him showing that kind of consistency is bizarre in a good way, obviously. So I'm excited to see. I feel like we can really discuss, the level is different, but I don't feel like that plays that much of a difference in the end. Of course, he'll need to adapt, but I feel like the fact that he's already been at the people there is going to play a huge factor in him adapting faster and better and making an impact from the moment he steps at Chelsea. I remember saying that I wanted him to be back in January, and I feel stupid now because him ending the season at Strasbourg was the best thing for him by a mile. I mean, I'm glad he stayed. I feel like we would have won a bit more in terms of squad building and squad strength with him in it, but for him, it was the best option to stay there. We're looking at Amugu, I feel like that's how we pronounce his name. He's arrived in January and hasn't played 10 minutes, I'd say. I don't know. I could be wrong. But he's
played a couple of games. But
I don't feel like he completed a full half of football for Chelsea. So I'm not saying Andrey would be in that situation, but I don't feel like he would be captain in any situation. He wouldn't be playing regularly as a starter. So I'm glad he stayed, and I'm glad he could show that he won awards to support his great season. So there's that as well. I know it doesn't really count much for someone's career. It doesn't say much about where he's ending up to at. But anyways, I feel like it's important for him at this moment as he'll be transitioning to the Premier League, to Chelsea, which is much, much more competitive as a club in our league, Premier League, in Europe, hopefully in the Champions League. So, yeah, I just feel like we have this Rolls Royce of a midfielder. So I'm just excited to see what Mauricio is going to do because I do have my preferences and I don't know if it's the same as his, but I just hope that he doesn't ruin Andrey because he's a fantastic player. He has a fantastic potential. He's 21 and he's showing all that, but he's still 21. So we'll have a midfield for a decade. Caicedo, Lavia, Andrey, Enzo, and Isugo, who's arriving now as well. So he's just very, very excited.
Yeah, you got a bunch of guys who are still a few years off of their prime, which is super, super exciting. Yeah. Here's the quote, Jess, because I'm coming to you on this one, because I know the nervousness. I can sense the nervousness, and I'm trying to assuage the nervousness. We're going to the Club World Cup. This is from Todd Bowley. We're going to the Club World Cup, so we are laser focused on the Club World Cup. We have some players that are joining us that weren't on the team. Andrey Santos, we're really excited about him and what he can add to the squad. Yes or no, is Andrey Santos going to play a major role at Chelsea next season? Go.
Oh, do you want me to answer with my heart, with my head?
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay. So with my heart, 100%, because I think I'm gonna be I was gonna say something, but people will grill me for it. So I'm just gonna say he's in the top 3 midfielders at the club, 100%. I'll stay with the top 3. I'm not gonna go further than that for now.
I'll go further. I'll say what you want.
But I with my head, I think it all depends. And the reason, I know it sucks to say that. It feels like a cop out, but I think at this moment, I need to see how our squad will look like because I still have a couple of questions. I know we've seen that, like we have a Sugo, but I don't know if the plan is for him to stay with us or to go on loan and to have that consistency. Obviously, the questions with Kendry, and although Kendry is much more forward, he can play at the 10, and that affects how everybody else in midfield stays. Is the plan to move KDH, or we'll keep, so there are a lot of questions. When it comes to the squad building, I think the impact Andrey will have will certainly depend on that, because right now, if we go by what Maresca does, then you think you have Enzo Caicedo, and then it changes whether or not you have Reece James at right back or not. So I think the difference between, like, say, him or Lavia, the obvious one is the injury prone, not injury prone, and his ability to stay fit. And I think Andre gets a little bit of, say there. I think he has, I mean, everything and anything can happen in football, but I think he has shown that he's very fit and doesn't, get injured often. So he can help us there. And I think if you go by that, he can really help us in terms of how to rotate, because he can do what Enzo does in certain games. He can help with what Moises Caicedo does in other games. But then again, that comes, are we keeping Sugo? Because then you would look at, okay, so Sugo is going to be filling in and rotating with Caicedo, and that leaves Andre where? So there are still question marks in terms of how we plan to move forward. But if we go solely by what I want to see, yes, I 100% want to see him as an integral part of the squad. Some might say, oh, you're just throwing him in the deep end. I do not believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I haven't believed that from the minute that we signed him. I have been very consistent. Nat said that she's happy that he stayed on loan, and I agree when it comes to his development as a player and for him. But I also agree when she said that we could have used him in the squad, and I think that he was ready to be part of the squad. The downside would be, obviously, he wouldn't have as many minutes that he had and all of that, and that you can't dispute that it was good for his development individually. But I always felt that he was ready because he has a mentality, and some people may disregard that, but that's really, that has set him apart for years, and I think that will continue to set him apart. And so, I mean, if I'm going to be honest and brutally honest, in my opinion, not only I would want to, I think he has to. I think if we're smart in terms of how we build the squad and how if Maresca is smart in how he utilizes the squad, he has to play a good part. And that doesn't mean that he has to start every game, that he has to be part of the starting 11, but he has to have important minutes. He has to allow, let's say, Moises Caicedo or Enzo to have some sort of rest. You have to use him because he can be such an important part of how the squad functions and how the squad stay fit throughout the season, and hopefully how we compete in multiple fronts.
And that is, I think, part of the key, Nat, to close this part of the pod out. Maresca got incredibly lucky this year, and I think, knock on wood, that we made it through the entire season without a major injury to Enzo Fernandez, major injury to Moises Caicedo. The midfield was super thin at points this year. Reece James playing a lot in midfield to cover off, KDH as like the lone midfielder for a lot of the Conference League run. It's just not stuff that you would hope for, right? And you have this potentially 5 midfielder lineup next year with Caicedo, Fernandez, Lavia, Andrey Santos, and then Sugo, who I think, again, comes highly regarded, and that's a player that we'll talk about on a future pod. But like, you go from having very little depth to having potentially a lot of depth, and then having to try and figure out what the configuration is, who plays when, who's a sub, how do we get, our top players the rest. You made mention that you think you had some preferences here. What are those preferences?
Yeah, so I feel like we should switch to a 3-man midfield. This is like, should be negotiable for me. But yeah, I don't know what Maresca has in his head. I just feel like we're going to have so much quality in midfield. And as I said, if we dominate midfield, we're probably winning much more games, much more easily, because we'll dominate with quality and probably much authority. So I just feel like utilizing the pieces and the players we're going to have is key here. And then we'd have space to, I don't know, maybe get Keanu Dyer to play some games when it's easier and rest those players that we have. Because even Lavia, I know he's not that much available most times, but he's a quality player. I rate higher than him. That's what Jess was going to say. I know that's what she was going to say. But yeah, I rate him higher, Andrey, higher than Lavia. And I feel like people are trying to put those two like, oh, it's either Andrey or Lavia. But both can work out together, I feel like, depending on how Maresca sets up the team. So it will give us possibilities, and we will have five midfielders. Yeah, we're gonna have many possibilities, and all of them will be quality. We'll have probably eight out of 10 players, 8 out of 10 players, and we won't let the level drop. Right now we have two, like 9 out of 10 players, and the rest are 7 at most. So I feel like having that consistency in the squad in a sector that I feel like is key for any team, no matter how they play, could make a difference, especially if we play in the Champions League. So I feel like a lot about the squad will be due to that, but I feel like we should be thinking all of the squad that we're going to play in the Champions League because we have to be there.
We will talk about that and those implications here in a second. As you guys know, I'm nervous as hell for Sunday, but bring it on. We're going to take our last ad break here, and then we will be right back. All right, 30 minutes on Andrey Santos, well deserved for the young man, having a wonderful season. We could go on and on and on about him, but there's another young talent that we need to talk about, and that's Estevao, who has, I think, finished last season incredibly well, has kind of now started this Rock'em Sock'em calendar that you guys have in Brazil, which is just all over the place. The Libertadores is obviously on right now, and all sorts of things. So let's just talk about where he is in his journey. He's obviously, for those who have not been paying attention, not going to play for Chelsea at the Club World Cup. He's going to play for Palmeiras, and that was confirmed a while ago. So he'll join after the Club World Cup. There's a chance we might play against him if the cards kind of shake out right, which would be a really interesting thing. But obviously comes with huge expectation after a standout season. And we've kind of just been, it feels like we signed him 10 years ago and we're just waiting for him to get to the club finally. Nat, let's dive into this player because obviously had a great season, exceeded all expectations, was playing with grown men every week and just dominating and showing why he is special and why he's broken so many records and why Neymar has called him all sorts of very pleasant things. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, he's just, I have no words for him anymore. I've said this before here. I feel like a very stupid person for even doubting he was going to be what he can be. And I'm more convinced by the second that he can be the world-class player, the Ballon d'Or, people say that he can be. He's playing in a bit of a different shape and position at the moment because Abel keeps switching his system, which I think is great. Maresca should be doing the same. But now Palmeiras is playing more in a 3-4-2-1. Yeah. And Estevao is one of those midfielders that plays more in the interior side with freedom to run to the right. So I feel like that benefits him a lot. I don't see him as a 10. I've said it a million times, but I feel like him floating the half space on the right flank and being able to centralize at times does wonders for any team. That's where he functions best. And that's where his main attributes show the best. So Palmeiras is benefiting from it again and again and again. And I don't know if you've seen that, but Palmeiras fans seem to be turning on him. Not gonna call them what I think they are, but I feel like it's too much pressure on a 17-year-old, 18 now, but we shouldn't expect every 17, 18-year-old to be a Lamine Yamal or even an Estevao. I mean, they ain't gonna keep that level. The chances they keep that level are not that big. So we just need to take it a game after game. The fact that he stays healthy, although he's not that physical, is a big, big plus, in my opinion, because sometimes those players who aren't that well built yet, he's grown a lot, but he's still, I feel like the Premier will be more clear than it is right now. Although he compensates with his pace and acceleration and intelligence, we've spoken about it a million times. but the fact that he's present, that he's available game after game is very important, and he keeps getting minutes that are important to his development. Palmeiras is doing great in the season right now as well. And as much as Palmeiras fans are turning on Estevao for some reason I don't understand, they don't want him anymore. They can send him to play for Flamengo for the next few weeks. They can send him to play the Club World Cup for Chelsea. It's all going to be okay. No problem. We'll take it. But yeah, I just feel like we're getting a player that's going to be ready to join the team. But I feel like he arrives in a different moment than Andrey, just because it's going to be his first experience abroad. And as I said, I don't feel like he's quite there physically, but I feel like he could be an impact sub that we also lack at the moment. Our impact sub is mostly either Neto or Sancho. Come on, those guys aren't impactful subs. So Andrey could be that guy. Esteban could be that guy for me and should be that guy, and he builds on from there. And again, it depends a lot on how Maresca is going to play this team, because there are great possibilities for Estevao as well in this Chelsea side. So a lot is due to what Maresca will be thinking for us next season. I think he's staying. I don't feel like he's leaving. But anyways, it's a lot due to the system, but I feel like he arrives to play a role, and it could become a bigger role as the season unfolds.
Yeah, I think 21 and Andrey Santos 21 to 18 is a big difference, right? In terms of physicality and maturity and all the sorts of things. Like obviously, Andre's not had it straightforward since he's kind of moved over to Chelsea, and I think that has made him better. I don't know what's going to happen here, but he actually did make comment about this. He said, Estevao is a top quality player, a world-class player. God willing, he'll go far, and we can create a great duo at Chelsea, a duo of Brazilians. I know that warmed your heart, Jess. Thoughts about the young man? I mean, we have some stats here I could run through. What are your thoughts on him and where he's at right now in his development?
Well, I'll just say I completely 100% disagree with whichever Palmeiras fan is talking badly about him, because obviously I haven't. I have one close Palmeiras fan, and he's extremely happy with him. Obviously, the online stuff will happen, but I think you need to take like what the fans are talking about and what's going on. You have to take it into context. And the context is, like, at least in my opinion, that Palmeiras are getting a lot of results. So they are top of the table, Brasileirão, they are winning games, but they haven't been showing a good football to watch since last season, the end of last season. So I think that it's like irking a lot of fans. I've seen a lot of fans talk badly about their coach, Abel, and which to me is wild because that man is a winner. And so I think there's a lot of sentiment in terms of not seeing the best out of, I mean, in their sense, not seeing the best out of a lot of the players because of how the Palmeiras squad is built. They are hugely talented. They have a lot of individuals. It's a very large squad. They should be dominating games, and we haven't really been seeing that. We have been seeing them dominating results, and at the end of the day, that's what you want to see, right, as a fan. But at the same time, there are moments in the game where you just get stressed, like, oh, you shouldn't be playing this player there, you shouldn't be doing that. And as Nat said, he has been playing a lot more coming inside, and I got the opportunity. I'm going to talk about that. We were talking before recording the pod, but I'm just going to bring it up because I'm too happy about that. I got the opportunity to watch him live because Palmeiras came. We had a game here at my state against my local club, Ceará. And so throughout that game, we saw Palmeiras change formations 4 times. So it started, as Nat said, in a 4-3-2-1, and then it changed to a 4-4-2. And there were moments where you had a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. So I kind of saw Estevao play multiple roles throughout the game, and I could see how some of them could be a little bit unnerving to certain fans. But one thing that I can say without a shadow of a doubt is that he was like a level above everyone else. And I don't mean that necessarily that he had a brilliant performance. It's just that every time he touched the ball, everyone went like you can't let him play. Like just like, you know, when you go with your center backs, like kill him, or just like every time that he got the ball, everybody was like scared. And I had my sister with me and she was watching Estevao for the first time and she was truly impressed. She was like, oh, you weren't kidding. Like there's something different about him. And even through to the untrained eye, you can see just the quality, the amount of quality that he has. And throughout the game, like my club managed to really like lock them up throughout the entirety of the game. They couldn't do much. They had like 3 players every time on Victor Hockey, 2 or 3 players every time on Estevao, and it took like a moment of brilliance out of Estevao with a free kick to unlock our defense, and they ended up winning 1-0. But it's just those sort of moments. I remember at the time there was a free kick, my sister looked at me and she was like, what in the world was that? Because it's just, it felt like he had taken the ball with his hand and just put it on the head of the player, the center back Gomez, to score. It's different. Like there's just that thing that you see, okay, this player plays in a different way. There's a different type of quality that he reads the game in a different sense. And I think one moment that really stood out to me was when there was a moment where the ball was just not getting there. Like we were locking their midfield. The ball was coming nowhere near. And at times you would see him close to his center backs to get the ball, to try to make something happen. And he ended up creating a chance out of that because he came back and the entire defense came apart. So he reads the game entirely well. I'm really happy with how his development has been going. Nat said what she wants to see at Chelsea, and that's kind of like what I want to see. I don't want people to think, oh, he's going to come in and it's going to be like Lamine Yamal. Even Lamine Yamal, he was not to Barcelona, like he didn't start like he did last season, right? Because you're talking about young players and they need to understand the team. They need to understand themselves within the team. And so my hope is that we give him minutes to explode, right? To gain confidence and that he grows with Chelsea, like he did with Palmeiras. So if you go back to when he was first coming up at Palmeiras, he wasn't getting a lot of minutes. You know, it was like minute, and then he showed in those minutes that he could do something, and then Abel started trusting him. Obviously, it was a lot faster than he trusted Endrick, but it was still like minute to minute, and he grew in importance within the team, and I think that can help with Chelsea. But you shouldn't expect him to have like a Cole Palmer season. If he does, awesome for us. But that's just like not the norm, not something that you would regularly see, particularly if you're talking about a South American player going to Europe at such a young age when the shift is so big in terms of how, you know, the culture and everything. And I also agree with Nat when she talked about his physicality. We have talked about that before, but seeing it live, he is a lot thinner than he looked like on TV. So that was something that I went, because I actually saw him in passing in the hotel, because I was at a hotel in the birthday party and they were staying at the same hotel. So a story for another day. But I saw him then and was like, oh, so like he's really thin. But then you watch him at the game and that he doesn't shy away from duels as well, even though he doesn't necessarily have, you know, has the physicality for it yet, but he doesn't shy away. And he uses everything that he has in his power in terms of his dribbling, his ability to read the game and body feints to kind of beat his opposition. So I would expect a lot more regarding that. Yeah. But the biggest downside is obviously still his physicality. But again, young, develop. And if you're talking about like players of his frame, he doesn't even necessarily needs to bulk up to be a huge player. If you look at Neymar, he was never a huge player. He's never going to be a huge player. But, you know, I think he will add that to his game. And it's just one of those things. We have to see how he develops both, you know, as a person in his body and also how Maresca sees him, because we've seen the discourse around him being a number 10, about being a winger, and it all will change in terms of how Maresca uses. If he continues with his squad, with his system, in the inverting fullbacks, then he will need his wingers to be like touchline wingers with take-ons as we have been kind of wanting to see, and he won't have a lot of freedom to go century unless he plays at number 10. So it's right now I'm just intrigued. I'm honestly intrigued to see what the plan is for him, because I refuse to believe I refuse to believe that there isn't a plan for a player that you invest like 60 million on at such a young age. You just have to believe there's some sort of a plan,
Yeah.
and path that Chelsea want him to take. So just looking out for that.
Yeah, and just to give some context here for those who are listening at home, we got 3 players here. We're just going to do some light stat comparisons between 3 players because it's fun. Huge shout out to Trach 10 for this stat pack. You have Mastanuano, you have Estevao, you have Yumin Lamal. All good, all young, all very, very talented. 60 games, their first 60 games for their respective clubs. Estevao is actually leading in total minutes across that bunch with roughly 35.77. Lamal is just right behind him, 35.10, and Mastantuano is 29.87. So not really anywhere close. Team goals. So from left to right here, 51, 73 for Estevao, and then of course you would expect Barcelona to be up there, 93. But Estevao leads in goals. He leads in assists, so he's 18 goals to Lamal's 9, 3 assists, or 3 penalties, I should say, to Lamal's 0, 1 free kick, Lamal's 0, 2 headers to Lamal's 0. Assist 10, Lamal has 1 more. But like these are players who are, in this entire stat pack, and we'll retweet this for everyone to see, who are very closely related, very highly regarded. Obviously, Yamal is like insane talent, but there is a pathway into how these young, super talented attackers get developed. Now you're looking across at what Estevao can do in a bigger league against tougher competition. Obviously, Yamin is doing that across the entire La Liga and into the Champions League. So there are levels to the game at different age groups, but super excited to see him. And yeah, very intrigued to see what the plan is with him. If there is a kind of stick with the squad, get integrated, get the fitness and physicality aspects up, and then play some critical minutes, or if there's a different kind of betting in plan. But this does bring us to our last section here, guys, because there's a lot going on. We are at the last 2 matches of the season. Obviously, the league close on Sunday at Forest, and then at the UECL final next Wednesday against Real Betis. I won't play our terrible stinger quite yet, but that's coming for our match review next week. A lot can happen here, right? I mean, Chelsea could finish in the Champions League, you could finish in the Europa League. Small odds you'd finish in the Conference League again. We know that the finishes from the league standpoint will impact potential transfers and what the summer looks like. There is the 10-day transfer window before the Club World Cup that's coming up right as the season ends, like 3 days after the UECL final. But I'll just throw some needs out there to you, because we know that Chelsea have some pretty obvious squad needs that no one's going to be surprised by. In this pretty obvious squad needs that I don't think will get filled necessarily is a goalkeeper. I do believe we need a quality one of those. Also, some sort of left back support so that Marc Cucurella doesn't have to play every single game next season, although he's been excellent this season. And then the 2 that I think are most interesting and why we're gonna talk about this is a high production winger and a high production striker. We have faded in the second half of this season. Started very slow last season from getting enough goal contributions from our front 4 to really charge up the league and be safe at this point for Champions League. and you throw a few more goals in there, and it does make all the difference. Those draws become wins. Those losses become draws. You're easily in the Champions League spots. So I'm bringing this up because Rodrigo's been mentioned, notably out of favor at Real Madrid because of all of the 10,000 signings that they've made. But a quality player, a young player, a Champions League winner, a Brazil international. This is a serious player who, even in a quote-unquote down season, 13 goals, 10 assists across all comps, not too shabby, would take it tomorrow, and played about 3,200 minutes in a team, let's be honest, this Real Madrid team wasn't vintage by any means. So I'm going to pass this one over to you, Jess, because I know we've been kind of thinking about, the prospect of like, oh man, what if Rodrigo is our left winger next year? How much of an upgrade would that be compared to what our left wing's been this season? I think it would be pretty big.
I mean, I'm definitely subjective here. I can say that 100% because, and Nat won't agree with me because obviously she's a Flamengo fan, but when both of them were in Brazil, Rodrigo and Vini, I liked Rodrigo more. I liked his style more. Obviously, I want both of them to succeed. But the big thing with Vini's explosion at Real Madrid, which has been great to see, and I think had not right now. He had a poor season, but the season before was outstanding. Is that you would have him at left wing, so you would have to play Rodrigo outside of position. He played obviously last season majority right wing, and now with Mbappe or right wing, or even sometimes as a false nine, and now with Mbappe, and you're seeing how Madrid look at other options. So he's definitely out of favor. I think he would explode if he were to play left wing consistently. I do believe that. I think he would be, right now you talk about how he's not as productive and all of that. And I do genuinely believe is because he hasn't been playing left wing, and he can't really be playing left wing with what Vini has, with the numbers Vini put out and the performances he put out. I mean, it would be nonsensical. But I would say right now, with the names that I'm seeing linked with Real Madrid and the targets that they're looking at, I would be surprised if Rodrigo continues to stay at Real Madrid next season. I mean, it can happen, obviously, but I would be surprised. I think you would see him linked with a number of clubs throughout the summer if he doesn't move beforehand. So you would see that transfer continue. As far as whether or not Chelsea are in for him, we've seen the rumors here in Brazil, and they're a good source that says that we have asked about it. So I 100% believe that we went there and asked what the conditions of any deal would be, like what his salary demands, wage demands would be like, and all of that. So I think we are very aware of what it would take for us to sign him. Now, whether or not we would be willing to let go of the structure or to pay what Real Madrid would want, that's a completely different story. And I understand how you mentioned like how the big impact of having UCL can have in terms of signings like these. But I would still be surprised if we were to go for a name like him. I would be. I'm not saying it's impossible. Maybe it's just me being a pessimist, but I would be surprised. I would be thrilled because he has been my dream target for left wing for ages. Again, saying I'm completely subjective here, but he has been my dream target for ages. Let's say, for the sake of the argument, that we are targeting him and that he would join, how he would fit under Maresca and the current system is something that I would say I would be intrigued to see, because I don't think he is a touchline winger at all. I think that he likes to occupy the central areas, and we've been talking a little bit about Estevao here. We mentioned central areas. When you talk about Cole Palmer, you talk about a player that also knows how to cut inside and they have spaces. Same with Kendry Paez. So, having the abundance of players that like to play centrally when you don't have fullbacks on the wings, it's a bit complicated. So either if you go for someone like him, I would much rather for us to move to a regular back four, three-man midfield, but I don't think that would happen. So that would be my only concern, because I don't think you would be getting the best out of him if you want him to stay like very down on the wing. I don't think that's where he's best at. I think he works more when he's closer to goal and central, and he shoots outside the box and has that freedom to occupy the half spaces, as Nat mentioned with Estevao as well. So, right now we have to see. We have to see if we get UCL. I like to say when, because words have power. And I believe that we will do it. And so, yeah, so we will do it. So when we have the UCL, it will be interesting to see how the rumors go, right? Because right now it's been, oh, we're not going to sign anyone or any big names, but maybe that shifts once we secure Champions League, and we'll only know if that will change when we get there, right? But I mean, he is my dream left wing target. I can say much more than that.
All right, so Nat, this is a player who could dive into central areas, could play in a variety of formations, but probably isn't the like prototypical Maresca, hug, the sideline sort of winger. What's your thought about, how he would potentially up level this team? One thing that's, has stuck out to me when I've watched him, he just looks like a lethal finisher when he's in an area. And that's just something that like I desperately need from whoever we sign in forward areas, is just to be a complete finisher and to have a variety of different finishes that you could apply in pressure situations. Do you see that as well, or do you see something that might be different?
Yeah, Rodrigo is very technical. He's always been very technical. I feel like that's why Jess said he was a better player in Brazil, because Vini was much more of freedom and I'll do what I know what to do. He wasn't very refined back then. I feel like Vini isn't that refined when compared to Rodrigo. That's not a bad thing at all. Just two different profiles that kind of complement each other very well when used in their best positions. And anyways, we've seen them play together for Brazil and Real Madrid. I feel like everybody knows. Not going at Vini, I love him. But anyways, I feel like this is a lot to do with, as we were talking about Andrey and Estevao, it's got a lot to do with what Maresca has in mind. Because I feel like if we keep this system that we're seeing throughout most of the season, 2024, 2025, we're going to have problems if we bring Rodrigo in. I guess I spoke to someone and I said it could be an Nkunku 2.0. And it would be awful both for Chelsea and Rodrigo. It wouldn't do anybody any good. So I feel like if we keep this system, it wouldn't make any sense to make moves for him. But if there's something in Maresca's mind telling him to change systems or the way he approaches the game, because I feel like one of my major issues with Chelsea at the moment is that we have two great fullbacks, and Cucurella and even Malo Gusto did very well with Pochettino last season going forward and driving attacks through the right wing. So we're not seeing that from our fullbacks, and that kind of pisses me off, because I feel like if we had that presence in attack, we would be able to create so much more. We would be able to create triangles and change positions with the midfielders and the wingers and the fullbacks, and create a lot of movement and maybe do well, utilize our striker better. So, because Jackson isn't that striker that's going to be on the box waiting for the ball. He's going to come and look to play. So that would give more possibilities for the team, not even going into system changes, but just how we approach the games overall. So I feel like if we switch to this sort of connecting system in which players play in reduced spaces and get to switch play and give speed to play by switching it, or just by movements in the same flank, I feel like we would benefit from having Rodrigo, because he can impact from the left, from the right, center, in the box, out of the box. So it gives us more possibilities, both in midfield, wingers, and even strikers, because he plays false nine, center forward at times as well. And as you said, Nick, he finishes very well. His finishing skills are great because he's very technical. He's unafraid to shoot he can do it in with almost no space. Sometimes it's crazy. I have a few things about him that I'm like, okay, I need you. I'm always looking for him to prove me some more because I feel like he's very good, but I also feel like he hasn't shown his full self yet. It's a little bit because of the Real Madrid environment, especially now that we're seeing so many big names there. So I feel like maybe a change of airs, a change of scenery would be good for him. Maybe London would be a great idea. South London, West London, actually. West London. I don't know West or South. Because, yeah, I do feel like if we bring him in and utilize him in a way that suits him, we're going to win it as a team and as a club, and we're going to do him well. Because we've brought players in the past that didn't work out for many reasons, and I feel like wasting that with Rodrigo and setting Chelsea back on missing another signing would be bad, you know. But no doubt about it, Rodrigo is great if he's available, and keeping that in mind that we need to make some changes to accommodate him. Real Madrid has been playing in a way that he's needed to accommodate the system, but I feel like we could do it the other way around because he's that kind of player. But we also have Caicedo, who should be in this equation, and Enzo. So, yeah, our squad's very good. We have some pretty big needs, but yeah, I feel like we shouldn't have needs like the ones we have right now, but those are easy to tackle at the moment, in my opinion. We just need to look at the right places.
Yeah, I guess just I'm thinking about, I don't know if it's a formation change. I don't know if it's the way the team is set up and what they're asked to do, different responsibilities across the pitch. To me, this is like you can never have too much quality up top. Like that is, if I were in Maresca's position, that would be a core tenet of what I would try and build my team around. Is you can never have too many goal scorers. You can never have too many kind of creative options in that front three, front four, whatever it is. Is this just too good of a player to pass up? Are there better options in your mind that could potentially do a job within the confines of the system? Like, I think just being pragmatic here, like that's a question that I would ask.
This is a very interesting question, and I think it will divide a lot of people. And the reason for me that it will divide a lot of people is because in my mind, it involves another player called Tyreek George. So the thing is, you look at the players that you have, right? And it should be obvious. You have a player with good potential, a player that has performed well, that deserves minutes because from what he has shown us and from what he from the performances that we saw this season, right? Being playing as a number 9. And so what he has given Chelsea has shown that he has quality. So to move away from that, and I'm not saying people will say, oh, you just want come and play, because they say that a lot. It's just logical for me for you to move away from a player with potential. You have to have like a superstar, right? You have to have someone that it's worth it for you to invest in, and to have someone that would be like, okay, at least this player, I'm not gonna go with the potential because I have a ready-made player right now that will improve us and that would make a huge difference. And you look at a player like Rodrigo, for me, he is that. He is, and I don't mean that because he is at Real Madrid. I mean that in terms of the quality and in terms of where he is at in his development, right? So I think that he would be that. But if you look at the market and the options, for me, at least the options that we are linked with, and I didn't want to name bomb anyone, but I will name bomb. Let's say Garnacho, for instance, because he was playing today. And you look at players like that. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but is he a player that I would be willing to, buy at that price to play and to know that he's going to take minutes away from Tyreek George? So it's a fine line of, it's not about Tyreek George. It's about being smart in the transfer world, and you look at players that can immediately upgrade it, and that's where I think about left wingers that we are linked with. Or even if it's true or not, but the names that we're seeing, Rodrigo, it's just an obvious, right? So if we were to get linked with like someone like Barcola or whatever, those are names that I'm not saying you go for them, but you just take a step back and you're okay. Let's see, how much would it be? Do you have the funds for it? Would they be willing to join us? Those are players that make you think. But if you look at the other options that we're linked with, those are options for me. There's like, it makes no sense. Like, we're better off playing Tariq. We're better off even keeping Sancho, for me personally, than going for some of the names that we're seeing it, because I don't think that those names elevate the squad or I don't think those options elevate the starting 11, and I don't think those options elevate the squad at all. So if the answer is no for that, then you don't buy a left winger. But if you're talking about someone that not only elevates the squad, but also elevates your starting 11, then that's someone that's worth, whatever price you can put in. So that's me. But I will reiterate, I'm very partial when it comes to Rodrigo. I understand that, but the logic is true for whichever player that you want to talk about when it comes to left wing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the system adapts next year. And, I think another core tenet of mine as fake manager would be that I use the talent that I have to the best of my ability, right? Mm-hmm. And not force fit them into roles that maybe are not going to suit them or get the best out of them. And so I do hope that there is kind of a reassessment of the talent that we have and how to fit those puzzle pieces together a little bit more elegantly this year. Than maybe what has been shown in year one, specifically over the last 6 or so months, where it's not been cohesive, it's not been pretty, it's been a lot of grind out sort of results, and a lot of players who kind of have been switched in different positions and tried to get the best out of them. So yeah, I'd be interested in that too. But look, we're already at an hour and 10 minutes. It's incredible what happens when you're having fun. There's more to come from these two wonderful pundits on this show as we get through the summer. Nat, I'll be seeing you in Philadelphia, I believe, in a few short weeks.
You will. Yeah.
So we're gonna be throwing a party in Philadelphia before the game. I think it's gonna be a hell of a lot of fun. And just a reminder, for those who are going to be out at the Club World Cup. The London is Blue podcast will be there with beer. We're being sponsored by Michelob Ultra to do some fun parties as we head into a tournament that has a hell of a lot of stakes for our financial future. So, look, all that to be said, thank you guys for a wonderful podcast talking about Andrey Santos, about Estevao, and, of course, the prospect of Rodrigo joining Chelsea and what he might bring. Please leave comments if you're on YouTube and give thanks to these guys for their wonderful insights. And until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.